So the waste on a starship goes where? Oh no. Hey everybody, Steve here to my dice. A weird one today, cool one. We're looking at the Star Trek Next Generation technical manual for the USS Enterprise NCC 1701D. It's Christmas, just doing fun stuff. Let's dive in. So I came upon this technical manual. I mean, I got it years ago, but I was at my parents' house and I found it. I thought, let's do a dive into it. There's a ton of stuff here. We're going to look at some of the cool stuff, and you're going to be surprised exactly what the USS Enterprise D had in it. So let's dive in here. Let's go. So the first thing we get to is an introduction, right? Basically what the mission objective for the Enterprise or the Galaxy class was, some of the propulsion stuff, lots of cool stuff here. The mission, tactical stuff. The important one, design lineage. You can see the old school Enterprise insignia, and the obviously the one that was for next gen. And we go down through lineage from the NCC 1701 Kirk's Enterprise, well, Captain Robert April, and of course Christopher Pike, and then made famous by Captain James T. Kirk. And then we have A, B, C, all the way through D. And a nice little general overview here. This book is filled with lots of cool stuff in here. Obviously, it gives lots of cool information. Very wonderful book. And like these things here, lots of information. Basically, who built what, lots of little information. There's things like that throughout this entire book. Construction chronology here, which is really cool because it gives a breakdown. You can see the assembly facility at Utopia, Planitia, and Mars. Basically, just see the size of the Enterprise. It's massive. I love the breakdown here. So it starts in 2343. It's when the project is first approved. Goes through all the steps: warp engine design, the whole shebang. Framing and hull construction doesn't start till 2353. It takes them another 6 years to get the starship skin fully done. And finally, only in 2263, 20 years later, the Enterprise is finally commissioned and sent out into space, right? It was pretty cool stuff. So yeah, it took them 20 years to build the Enterprise, right? And there's cool things about spacecraft structure, how they coordinate this, the Enterprise coordinate system. All really cool, confusing. This is a very technical book. I love it, though. Lots of cool stuff in here. The hull layers, you can just see all the different layers to a starship hull. The structural integrity field, that was one that was always in danger of failing horribly. It was barely holding on, or was going to fail at any moment. The ship would fly itself apart. It's amazing how this thing never actually failed. I guess it was a really good system on the Enterprise, but it was always like structural integrity down to 25%, Captain. I love this here. Basically, the touch surfaces they had back on the Enterprise. Obviously, years and years ahead of what we have now for our touch screens on our smartphones and all the other smart devices and laptops. I love the breakdown, all the sensor matrices, the data crystal membrane, monocrystal waveguide, polyduranide sheeting, optical nanoprocessor, clear tripolymer coating. I just love the fact that Star Trek has always seems to have been a little bit ahead, obviously, of storage devices and touch screens and all the different ways of all those little beep, 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 beep you heard on the bridge all the time. Very cool. This one breaks down the different flight control, operations management, you always hear the coordinates, right? So basically everything is designated off the center of the galaxy, right? And so every coordinate is based on the sort of the X and Y and Z axis depending on where you are in the galaxy, right? So here the object bearing 024 Mark 35. So you get the it is rather confusing reading through it, but it's very cool, very, very cool. One of the most important sections is the warp propulsion systems, and basically this is how it explains warp field theory and application, warp power measurement, Obviously, even I love these little things here because they talk about how they had to kind of come up with a way of making warp not overpowered, right? And it kind of gave you could never reach warp 10. If you hit warp 10, although they did in an episode of Voyager and it turned out bad, but you can never hit warp 10. And they kind of had to sort of play around with how warp measurement has changed since the original series. Because in the original series, the Enterprise went to warp 14, which can't happen, right? So it's crazy, right? They come up with all these ways here. Yeah, see, by the way, estimated where no hands before, the Traveler was probably propelling the Enterprise about warp 9.9999996. Good thing they're in the carpool lane, right? So all this crazy stuff, kind of come up with all this stuff, how it works, how the system works, the matter, antimatter reaction assembly. Again, I love these designs. You can see the antimatter storage and matter storage, how it works through. So basically you have matter on top, antimatter. It comes through, hits dilithium crystals, and the reaction is shoved through to the nacelles. They even have it here, the two top and bottom. Obviously the middle's been cut out. And there's the chamber itself. And there's, of course, the dilithium crystals, the very beating heart of the warp engine there. Very cool stuff. Goes through how the nacelles, all the different stuff, warp propulsion itself, creating the warp bubbles, all that cool stuff. Another blurb here, this one's really cool, talking about how there have been lots of visitors to the set, and there's always something missing. They were on the Enterprise, but something was missing. Of course, that was the ambient sound that was added in post-production, that hum and the beating hum of the ship. Obviously not there in real life. The replicator system, and this one's important. We'll deal with this later on. It's why I asked, Waste does what? There's a lot of cool things in this book, a lot of little hidden jokes they put in. One of them being that and this comes from the original series too, random pipes in the walls and basically with wording GNDN. It says goes nowhere, does nothing. That was a joke from the original series. It continued through, as far as I can tell, most of the Star Trek shows that came after. The replicator system, something they dealt with. It's in this book. It was never really fully out there until they talked about it in Star Trek Discovery. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, one of the things that I always found interesting about this book and when it tells you about the Enterprise is there's lots of things we didn't see on the show. Obviously due to technical limitations, budget limitations, all that. One of these things has to do with the tactical systems. Now, we know about the phasers. You never got to see them all fire from everywhere, but until Picard Season 3, where the Enterprise D went on that one final amazing battle, you got to see actually a lot more of the weapon systems working. Obviously, a lot's changed from, now, from 2023 all the way back to the mid to the late 80s to mid 90s. Very cool. Now, one of the things here, obviously, is goes to the phasers. You kind of know where those all are. They were always kind of out there. Different phaser operations. And here's the important part. Photon torpedoes. Now, we knew about the one in the front, the one at the back, right? Your forward launcher, your aft launcher. This ring right here, yes, there's a launcher on the saucer section that seems to launch right above Shuttle Bay 1, which is very, very cool. Although it is a bit weird. Now, again, this is hard to tell, and they don't give you a ventral view, just the dorsal here. This could be underneath, because these are actually supposed to be access doors, emergency access doors, so shuttles can come out. But it's cool to see there was actually one on the saucer section, one of those things we never got to see. This was another cool one here. This one talks about medical system support for obviously the crew members there. And close examination, one of the medical displays in sick bay shows that one of the patient status indicators is labeled medical insurance remaining. Don't bother trying to freeze frame your VCR. Yes, this book is that old, and if you don't know what a VCR is, I hate you right now. It's one of those things way too small to read. Very, very cool. I like that. That's one of those cool little details. that was sort of hidden away as sort of an inside joke for cast and crew. Now this is yet another one that we didn't get to see. Technically, we got to see the captain's yacht from the USS Enterprise E, but this is the one from the USS Enterprise D. We never got to see. It was designed, obviously, you can see it here. This is that weird oval shape on the underside, dead center of the saucer section. It never came out, but you can see the captain's yacht here. Sort of a dignified travel pod for the captain and dignitaries. It mentions here there being lots of, there's some staterooms, full bridge. It's got an impulse propulsion system. It says, this is one of those nifty little things we never get to see in the show. We didn't. We briefly flirted with the idea of actually using the captain's yacht in Samaritan Snare, but decided to use an executive shuttlecraft instead. Patrick Stewart informs us the yacht's named Calypso, after Jacques Cousteau's ship. Visual effects coordinator and Navy veteran Ron B. Moore points out naval tradition would probably insist the craft be called the captain's gig. Again, some of those cool things we never got to see in the show, which is unfortunate, but I guess, you know, due to constraints and all that, it's something they couldn't really do. To conclude it, you gotta look to the future, right? So there was projected upgrades, the road to 171E. Obviously, we know where that came, right? The one they deal with is the Nova concept, right? Which a ship with approximately 10% total internal volume, less than the current Galaxy class. The Nova was featured in Voyager. It was a much smaller, much smaller ship, smaller than Voyager. Voyager is much smaller than the Galaxy class Enterprise was. It was a science vessel. Obviously, the Sovereign class we got for Enterprise E. What's cool though is we get to see some projected ideas. Now, some of these we can see, right? This faintly reminds me of what Voyager ended up looking like a little bit. Obviously different. This one I love the most because it drops the whole saucer section, star drive, nacelle thing for it up front, and with all these different mission-specific pods that can be detached and reattached is very, very cool. So this is sort of some of the ideas they were looking for before we got to Sovereign class, before the show ended, before they blew up the Enterprise in Generations. Very, very cool. And now we did talk about the replicators, and this comes into waste management. This is one of the things that they never really touched on very much, but until we hit Discovery. There's a scene where one of the admirals, and this is when Discovery's gotten to the far future, hands the bad guy of the week an apple, saying, hey, you know, that's our poop, right? Well, that's true. So water and sewage recycling. So yeah, you see, ships don't have, even big ones like Enterprise, don't have infinite room, right? So water, waste water would be, so when you pee, it gets sterilized and basically converted back to base water and added to the water storage. Your leavings, let's say your solid stuff, actually gets broken down, sanitized, and it's turned into a sludge that gets added back to the matter storage tanks on a ship. And it's this matter storage, this sludge basically, that when someone decides to replicate anything from a shirt to a salad becomes that thing. So basically they recycle everything. This is something I know people have fought over before. It's like, oh God, but yeah, so basically you're recycling your leavings. There's other things like matter replication recycling for things like everything from broken shirts to broken stuff. Yeah, so yeah, kind of gross actually, but at the same time it's the future, and yeah, it gets turned into basically inert sludge. Kind of weird. And now I know you're curious, the title, the Enterprise has what? There were some great little inside jokes that were thrown into the designs of the Enterprise. He's actually made it onto the big ship display in engineering. Now it's hard to see, but maybe you can see. But there's a duck race car, a plane, a mouse, and the Doomsday Machine from the original series on the Enterprise. And they're hard to see, but they're there. So right here, we've got a race car. It's hard to see what's there. Right here, we've got a little mouse. There he is, a little mouse. Right here, we got a duck. Over here, a happy little plane. And of course, right in the front here, right there, we've got the Doomsday Machine. All right, so these things were actually just hidden there, and they made it into the first season. I believe a few of them were removed, but I think, if I remember correctly, the duck remained. But yeah, it was these cool little things, these little jokes, these little inside. I mean, I'm not even sure if they caught it for this book, to be honest. I think they were things that just nobody noticed until you look really close. Very fun. I love these cool little things. You can see the little bridge right up here, and there's the captain's yacht. And even the line coming down here, yeah, captain's yacht. Very, very cool. There you have it, guys. So a quick look at the technical manual for the USS Enterprise D. Some of the cool little secrets and inside jokes that they had when making the show, and all the information put on there. I'm pretty sure it continued into other series. The same jokes or brand new ones. I just love the character that it added to the ship. And it's unfortunate we didn't see some of that stuff, obviously due to budget constraints and technical ability back in the 90s. We didn't get to see everything, but it'd been cool to see Captain's Yacht earlier than Star Trek Insurrection. It'd been cool to... actually, one of the things I would love to see more was saucer separation. They did it a few times in the first season. They did it in the third season. And then that was kind of it until we got to Generations, where they separated again, trying to save the saucer section, as the Enterprise warp core was going to go absolutely critical and blow everything to living hell. But hey, you know, if wishes were horses, and that's the title of Deep Space Nine. But there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was something curious. If you can find it, go get it. I mean, I got this a long time ago, but hey, as always, guys, thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas, or however you celebrate, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye.